All right, today I have Janet McConnell. She is a health and fitness expert with over 20 years of experience in helping individuals enhance their physical and cognitive well-being. She specializes in strength training for brain health, and she advocates for a holistic approach that balances exercise, nutrition, and mental health as she understands the pressures of diet culture, body image struggles, and the misleading messages about what fitness, quote unquote, should look like. She's also the author of Elements of Aging Well and a professional speaker. We've got a pro in the house. So excited to welcome you, Janet McConnell, here with us.
Oh,
Hello.
hello, Michelle. Thank you so much for that stellar introduction.
Yeah, I'm impressed. It's an impressive bio, and I'm so happy to have you on here and for you to share your wisdom, your expertise, your knowledge with us. So, to start off, could you share a little bit with us about your story, as much or as little as you'd like to share, especially in how it relates to fitness?
Absolutely. Well, I never set out at the beginning of my adult life to be a speaker, trainer, an
Mhm.
amateur bodybuilding competitor. That sounds ridiculous. I mean, when I was 22, 23, I just wanted to be a teacher and, have a career and get married and just have a life. And I didn't really understand where it was all going to go at the time, but it all feeds into kind of what I have become over time. And I think, well, it would should be said that when I started out in life as a kid and as a teenager and a young woman, I was very athletic and healthy and wasn't like crazy about, eating all my vegetables or, getting a certain amount of steps. We didn't care about that, back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. But I realized when I hit my mid 40s that I was not in good health. I was not in shape. What I had done is I had prioritized my career and my goals and all of that and completely just forgot to exercise. I forgot to eat right. Literally. I mean, I just didn't, I just thought, well, I'm a healthy person. I'm just gonna always be healthy, right? But as it turns out, that's not the way our bodies are designed. They're kind of like when you get a brand new car and there's nothing wrong with it and you can just drive and drive and drive and then one day it's like, "Oh, I need an oil change. Uh-oh, what's that funny noise? Uh-oh, maybe it's time to trade it in." Only you can't do that with this
Yeah.
body. You have a classic car at some point that you have to, replace the battery, the brakes, the transmission. And so I got to my mid 40s, and all of a sudden, it seemed like to me, I had high blood pressure, high triglycerides, high cholesterol. My doctor just kind of went, I don't know what's going on, but you have early heart disease or signs of it, like not full blown yet, but you are on the path for some degradation here coming up if you don't do something. And he slid a stack of prescriptions across the table at me for all those old people medications. And I was like, what? I'm 46. This is unheard. I mean, in my mind was just blown. It's like I'm too young to be this old.
Hmm.
And and I was like, there was a part of me that kind of nudged at me and said, what happened to the little athlete? What happened to this young woman who was strong and fit and lean? And I thought, well, if I did it before, I can do it again. So I bargained with my doctor. I said, give me 6 months. He's like, oh, here we go. Somebody bargaining for their life.
Mm.
And and he finally said, okay, let's make an appointment for 6 months from now. And you're going to come back in here. We're going to take these same blood tests. And I said, and I finished his sentence. If the numbers are still bad, I'll take the prescriptions. Well, so now I knew it's on. So I left the office. I didn't have a clue what to do first. And I talked to my boss about it a little bit, and she said, well, I've got a really great trainer. Why don't you just start there and then just make it up as you go along? You'll figure out something. But start at least the trainer will get you to go regularly so you'll be consistent. And that's better than kind of a hit and miss approach. And she was right. So I signed up with this trainer, and he happened to be into strength training and bodybuilding. And as it turned out, I loved it. It felt so good to move my body and to see myself getting stronger and to be more. It gave me confidence. It gave me this feeling of what I just finished was so heavy. Nothing else for the rest of the day is going to be that hard. It made me feel kind of invincible. And it was like a new kind of layer started to form outside of myself of who I am in the world. And it was so powerful. And I kept going. And at the end of 6 months, I went back and all of my blood work was in the safe range. And I hadn't even started with a diet yet. I wasn't even doing any nutrition. That's how much movement is important. And you can't really lose weight or lose fat with exercise alone for very long. You can do a little bit. There's a point where your body will level out, and then you also need to apply your nutrition strategically to be able to go to the next. It takes both, really, but one supports the other. So I went back to my doctor and he said, "Okay, just don't quit. Don't you quit." But the fact that a doctor wants to give me medicine where really I just needed to heal myself by following lifestyle habits. Duh. We all know now, but this was back in the late 90s, so, or I would say, yes, it was in the late 90s when this all kind of happened. Um, so that's kind of what got me into it. And I ended up going so deep into it that I became a bodybuilding competitor and won trophies on stage. And the most recent one was in the 60 and over class because I was 64, 62. So yeah, and then it was like it started to stand out because I was older. And that was kind of unusual. The groups got smaller and smaller and smaller the older I got. And I thought, there's something here. Maybe what I want to do is change what I'm doing with my life to work with men and women who reach middle age and realize that things got away from them a little bit while they were looking the other way with career and family and other obligations. Maybe there's a way that I can put myself in a niche where I can help people like me. And so that's where the whole fitness side of my life began.
Yeah. So it sounds like you were busy doing your life and family and work and not really thinking too much about like what will happen to my body. And you got had a wake up call, so to speak, and
Yeah,
you made some drastic changes and you
yeah.
discovered the empowerment that fitness can bring and continued down that road and saw some positive changes. And a lot of us, like with my own story, I like to work with people who I can relate to as well, like more extremes, like going down like disordered eating or eating disorders, like, so we can
Mm.
always relate to our own stories. We can always relate to other people through our own stories. Yeah, and not everyone's story is the same, but you discovered fitness in a way that was empowering for you.
Yes, yes. And what you're talking about too with eating is a huge part of it, especially for women, because women that are from my generation grew up with the knowledge and the experience of all you have to do is skip dinner, skip breakfast, and your jeans will fit again.
Yeah.
When you're 60, that does not work.
Yeah. And it's also the whole, culture that we live in is like, why do we have to fit in the jeans or why is there so much pressure to lose weight? Like,
Of course.
and there's the difference too between like fitness and health, and they're not always
Yeah.
related, right? Yeah. So I like your perspective and your knowledge around aging and like longevity and how we can live more full lives. Like anyone who works in a hospital and sees older people will acknowledge that so much, not to put too much onus on individuals because there is a system that we live in that is not always helpful for people to make healthy choices. But
Right.
those people who see the sick people will acknowledge, like, if you had just like maybe a small habit that you changed in your life that you did like decades ago, you wouldn't be here right now,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Right. So like we do have autonomy, we do have choice. So that's what I want to talk about. Like, how can we live longer and better and take care of our bodies as we age? Someone who's doing bodybuilding competitions in their 60s, that's really impressive. So, first of all, what are some myths about aging that you would like to break?
Well, it's partly supported by a culture of ageism where we
Mm,
don't- we see an elderly person and we immediately think feeble, probably a little not really involved in day-to-day life, a little bit out of touch with the future and not they have a great story, they have a past, but that was, I'll listen to the story, but okay, move on because we're going this way. And I would like to change that so that we look at older people as founts of knowledge and experience and perspective, but it's hard to do if that person is feeble, is weak, isn't self-empowered. And so that comes from actually getting away from that mindset of, I'm retired now, I've worked hard my whole life, I'm just going to coast. I'm not going to stress myself. I'm not going to put anything on myself. I'm just going to chill out because I've earned it. That is one of the quickest paths to decline that there is because it's a mindset that says comfort is king and comfort is killing us.
mm,
I I heard this really great phrase just a couple of weeks ago in a podcast. It is far better to suffer with meaning than to experience comfort without purpose.
mm,
That's powerful because comfort is something, well, I don't want to do that. It doesn't feel good. I don't like to feel like that. Uh, okay, so there's some things maybe that are too extreme, but to start out with just simply exercising, walking a mile, walking 3 miles, well, that hurts my feet and it makes me sore. Well, then back off and do something a little bit easier until your body is ready for it. So you do have to start slowly, but get away from the idea that comfort is what you're seeking. Instead, new experiences, new challenges, new ideas, new ways to contribute in the world rather than just sitting back in neutral and not contributing. Because then you lose the purpose of why to get up in the morning. So there's something to do with the mindset in aging that I think is very important. Because once that's sorted out and you decide, what do I not want to give up as I get older? Because that's why people are afraid of getting old is, I mean, I always say people are more afraid of getting old than they are of dying because getting old means I'm going to slowly relinquish my freedoms. I'm going to slowly give up the things that matter to me. And in the end, then I have nothing. And then I have to live for another 5 years before I die. That's pretty bleak. Um, Instead, to decide now as I become an old person, what do I not want to give up? What are the things that make me love my life, make me want to do? It could be as simple as spending a lot of time with your grandchildren, and having the energy to do that and being able to pick up your grandchild and not throw your back out.
mhm.
Or it's traveling, or it's some kind of a hobby, a sport like people with pickleball and hiking and golf and all kinds of activities, bike riding, where you actually need to maintain a certain amount of strength. And with travel it's a rambunctious activity. You get knocked around and with your luggage and standing and walking and all that. It's a lot. I was just thinking about this earlier in just late last week because I was traveling. I was like, man, am I going to be able to do this when I'm 85? Yes, because I'm
Uh-huh.
so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, what you're saying about, especially, it's different in different cultures, but in American culture, it's this idea where you work hard your whole life and then you retire and then you're done. And that's so limiting. While comfort is helpful, I think especially if you have hustled a lot, it's like you go to the opposite extreme. But we as
Yeah,
humans, even in old age, we never want to stop learning. We never want to stop growing and expanding and
right.
experiencing things. And I like what you said about like this idea of like the older person. It's like you're impressed if they do something, but our bodies are incredible, and if we like
Yeah,
keep things up, like they're capable of doing lots of things for us, even into old age. And I like that you're breaking that stereotype of like old people can only do this or you can't do this when you're older.
right. And there is you do have some say in it. There's
Yeah.
always things in life that you don't control, but there's a lot you do control. And I remember when I was on stage for the first time at 52, I remember there were other divisions of age, and they had a 70 and over division. And I was just like, "Oh, I'm going to do that. I want to do that. I want to be." And guess what? That's next year.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
But
Yeah.
so it's come full circle now, and I'm realizing, oh, I'm glad I kept at it. So I didn't go, oh, that would be really cool, and then just stop preparing,
Mhm.
stop doing that. Where I didn't just do it for that, but I can because I did it. So
Right. Yeah,
yeah,
it's this idea of like, and I do this with my clients too, and with my programs, like fitness being beyond like just right now and how you want to look, or like a short-term goal, but
right.
long-term, like 20, 50 years down the road, how do I want to move? And kind of claiming that for yourself as a
Yeah,
possibility. Of course, life happens and, we could lose an arm or whatever, get into a chronic illness, then that could be beyond our control, but like we can focus on what we can control and not limiting ourselves because of
right.
too much. That's what you're saying, yeah. So,
Exactly.
yeah, and so you're big into strength training, obviously, and we know most people know that strength training is good for our muscles and our bones, especially for women. Every decade after 30, we're like losing 3 to 5% muscle mass. Just entropy happens, and a lot of people use strength training as a way to just change the way that they look. But you talk a lot about strength training for longevity and how good it is for the brain. So could you tell us like the benefits of strength training that we might not typically think about?
You're right. That it's not, well, at least for my clients and myself, it's not to get a bikini body. Certainly.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah,
care. Don't care about that. Want to be
yeah.
functional, strong and functional and be able to move gracefully and smoothly and not lose our balance and all of those things. So you're right that this thing about, especially with women, because we tend to be smaller scaled, our bones decalcify a little bit every year if we aren't eating right, supplementing right, and giving those bones a little thrill once in a while, as in exercise. And so, building muscle, working your muscle is what stimulates your bones to stay mineralized, in addition to giving it the right materials to do so with, right? You give it the materials and then you give it a purpose. Oh, you still need me. I guess I'll stay around. So skeletal muscle is a huge part. In fact, you can be taking all of the, vitamin supplements in the world, and if you're not strength training or if you're not exercising, if you're not using your muscles, your bones are like, great, but why? I'm
Mm,
not being needed. So,
exactly. That's a good way to put it. I'm not being needed. You have to force your muscles to need to work, so to
yeah.
speak.
Yeah, they need a reason for it. And so that is, and then also with women who have over dieted and cut calories too much, then what they're doing usually is stripping away the very nutrients that you need in order to maintain mass in your muscles, in your skeletal muscles. And then in turn, that affects the bones. So it's having a good, robust nutrition plan that provides for that, but also the brain. I think that was something you wanted to know more about. So
Mhm.
I started to notice, excuse me, I started to notice in some of my clients who are in their 70s and 80s, I have a few. I've had a sprinkling throughout my career of people who are very early diagnosis of Parkinson's or Alzheimer's. And what's happened is their doctors send them because they need exercise so that they can keep their balance. They're just thinking functional, be able to take care of myself as long as possible, nothing crazy. But what happened is they came to me and started working out, started exercising, started being happy, started looking forward. They would look forward to coming because of the community and the gym. And then they started realizing that they could still walk the dog, they could still take out the trash, they could still mow their lawn, they could still go on an Alaskan cruise, even though they've got this. And then they go back to their doctor because they usually go more often because the doctors need to assess how they're doing. Are their meds still appropriate for the stage in the disease that they are? It's incurable, it's progressive, but it has a certain growth pattern. And they would go to their doctors after 6 months, 8 months, and their doctors were all saying the same thing, Michelle. They were saying, I don't understand why you're not getting worse.
Hmm.
Don't understand why your disease is not progressing. Okay, maybe it's one of those things where there's a pause. Because, sometimes in serious diseases, there's a little mini remission in there. Cancer is a bigger, you want the big remission where it's years, right?
Mhm.
But for neurodegenerative diseases, there's usually a little pause and then a little slippage, and then it'll level out. Maybe that's all it is. Well, a year later, a year and a half later, they're going in and they don't have to increase their medicines. They don't have increased trouble cognitively or with, as in the case of Parkinson's, it's more physical to begin with. You know, they're not losing their balance, they're not falling. Their tremors are controlled by the medication. But it struck me, and I'm a curious person, and I thought, I'm seeing a pattern here. Why is it that my neurodegenerative clients that have this issue, this challenge, why are they having such a great experience? I'm glad, but I don't understand. So I started digging a little bit in the literature and in the studies, and I learned a lot. There are lots of studies that have been done for the last couple of decades on diet, cardio, sociability, like in the Blue Zone study, where, it's
Mhm.
important that you have social connection. And of
Mhm.
course, Mediterranean diet is, kind of like the generic, it's like the
Yeah,
generic.
yeah. The
There's
poster child for the diets of longevity. Yep, yep.
right, right. There's others that work too, but that one was showcased in a lot of the studies. But nobody was talking about resistance training, just plain old strength training. And then I started to find studies that are brand new, like in the last 3 or 4 years, like since COVID, these things have come out. And they've been studying it for a while, but they finally have been studying it long enough to have a big enough sample size to have done it for a long enough time. So now they have double blind, peer reviewed research that says strength training is the most powerful neurodegenerative disease protector.
Wow.
It's neuroprotective.
Wow.
And it's good. You want to do all those other things, you know, cardio, diet, good nutrition, sleep, sociability, those
Uh-huh.
all prop up. But if your skeletal muscle is weak and frail, doesn't matter. I mean, you'll live a little longer, but you won't have any strength to do anything. You
Mm.
lose your independence, you lose your self-efficacy quicker. And and then chemically, what's going on is when you work your large skeletal muscles, like the quads, the hamstrings, and the glutes. Those are the leg muscles for those of
Yeah.
you lay people out there. Your upper leg muscles and your rear end. Those are big muscles. So when you work those, they really take a lot of stamina and they release a lot of materials into your body. And one of the things that they release is something called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF. And it is a protein that is like Miracle Grow for your brain. It's
Mhm.
Miracle Grow for your whole body. So your whole nervous system benefits from this neurotropic factor. It It is the substance that makes nerves stay connected or repair connections that are starting to fray, helps to clear out all of the wastes, get the amyloid plaque, the
Hmm.
sticky stuff that gets in your brain is kind of like chewing gum in your hair, only it's in your, you
Yeah.
know, and it just gums up the works and then your nerves can't work. It makes those so, and of course, it doesn't stop here. It works down here, but it goes up and it repairs the brain. This is what strength training can do. And I think that's something of a miracle, that it's something that simple. It's accessible to everyone. And even if someone is in a wheelchair, there's things that they can do, with bands and
Mhm.
weights and if they're in a walker, they can strengthen their legs so that they can be more self-sufficient on those legs. Anyway, that just blew me away. So it helps to clear amyloid plaque and it gives you brain-derived neurotropic factor. And those are so important for maintaining the integrity of your brain,
That's so cool. I love
isn't
that.
it?
Yeah, especially as someone who loves fitness and working out, like this is wonderful to hear. Yeah, I think the more you can take away I need to look a certain way or I'm doing this to lose weight, the more you can take that away and focus on the benefits for your health, for
Mm,
your well-being, for the enjoyment of your life, the more exciting exercise can be, right?
yeah,
Otherwise, it's just like oh, I have to do this and blah, blah, blah. So
right.
I love that you're sharing this with us. I'm curious, a question that came up is like, someone's listening to this. Maybe they're in their 20s, maybe they're in their 50s, or maybe they're in their 70s and 80s. It's never too late to start, right?
Right.
First of all, it's never too late.
Never too late.
Yeah, but as someone who's listening, like, okay, I get the benefits, the big muscles, the muscle groups in my body. Um, in your opinion, what do you think is a good amount to exercise to get these benefits? Or what kind of strength training? Like some people hear strength training and they're like, oh yeah, gym, muscles, barbells.
Uh-huh.
And we all have different ideas, but like, could you break it down a little bit more practically? Like for someone maybe who's just beginning, or wanting to get more into it, what would you advise them to do?
That's a great question because this is becoming more well known. That question is getting asked a lot because there's people out there who just never entered a gym. They played games when they were a little kid, but then once they got out of school, it's like, okay, enough of that. Um, and it's so important that people do get that point that you made about it is more about lifestyle and about strength. Enjoy your life. It gives you a higher purpose and a reason for going, not just, oh, I don't care if my skirt doesn't fit.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah.
So, okay, so what do people do if they're starting? I suggest, first of all, don't go overboard. You
Good
know,
advice.
if you go overboard, you're going to be sore, tired, you might hurt yourself. You'll be demotivated because taking on too much is just too hard. It's like when you know you're going to move houses, you don't just start hauling the heavy furniture out on the lot. You pack little boxes, you get the little things done, and you make a stack, and then you take it bit by bit, and then you go for the big haul. So it's kind of the same thing. Don't try to do it all. You can work out a lot at home, even. There's a lot of videos out there that are great resources for how to work with little bands and smaller dumbbells. What are some chair exercises if you are chair bound or not steady on your feet yet? What are some ways to get your legs stronger so that you can stand? So that's all out there. And I even had somebody asked me last week in an audience about even stuff like, I want to be a firefighter and I don't like going to the gym. It's like, okay, well, but there's plenty you can do. There's, the battle ropes and the sandbags and all the stuff that they do on. So I've got some trainings for that. So it depends on where the person is, but practically speaking, I would say dabble, get started, pick out something you can do and keep doing it. You'll get to the point where you'll think, well, this is kind of easy. I either gonna stop or I'm gonna do more. I need more. So go that direction. You don't want to stop. And even if a person feels that a trainer is a luxury, it's an expense and it's maybe a nice to have, not a need to have. Understand that I have a trainer and I'm a trainer. Olympic athletes have trainers, even though they're really good at what they do. So, what the trainer does isn't just make you do stuff, they are there to keep you accountable so that you will show up because you've paid for it. And they keep you from getting hurt if they're good.
Mhm.
They keep you
Mhm.
from getting hurt. So, even if you think of long term, I don't want to have a trainer, get one for 1 month. Go
Yeah.
to a big box gym and find a trainer. Get on the treadmill and watch the trainers and how they operate. There's a bunch on the floor. They're training clients. Watch them. You'll see a trainer looking at their phone, scrolling, and their client is over here doing a walking lunge badly, and they're not, they're not
Not that
correct.
one.
Not that one. Yeah, you want the one that is really down there on the level with their client in their face and, watching them and correcting their shoulder angle or, or seeing that the weight's too heavy and switching them out and teaching them. So what the trainer can do for a month, what they can do is a lot. They can teach you how to use all the machines. They can teach you a routine, like how to put a little training together for yourself and even set up a program for you. And then you're off and running for the next 90 days. You can do that. And you can walk into the gym confidently, look at a machine and know what you're doing, knowing that you're not going to hurt yourself. And
Yeah.
then when you need a little upgrade, then you can hire them for another session or two. So you can just do piecemeal. You can do it like that if you want.
Mhm.
It's too expensive or you feel like it's not worth a lifetime commitment of a trainer. Um, so that's one way to do it, and that's a safe way once you decide to ramp up. Like if you're being careful in the beginning, so start simple, get your walking in, start focusing on eating more protein and get plenty of water, watch that sleep hygiene. There's so many aspects to just
Mhm.
being a vibrant, and they all are important.
Yeah, I like what you said. Find something, don't overdo it. Find something that you can do. A lot of the times people have this idea of like, oh, I'm not doing anything. I should run a marathon. Like, I really should start training for that. Or like, that's what healthy people do, right?
Yeah,
Like, that's what
right.
I should be able to do. Or like,
Yeah.
they're like, I hate running, but I'm going to make myself run. It's like,
Oh,
don't
yeah.
do it if you hate it. Go find something you like to keep
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
active. At least like that's the idea like with my clients. It's like create a container for movement, like a
Yeah.
habit of movement, and then you can put different things in that container, right? But you got to have that
Good.
container first. Yeah, and then I also like what you said about trainers as a coach. People are hesitant, and I get it because I can be that way too. It's like I don't want to spend money on that. Like I don't want to invest in that, but it's like what's more important than your health? What's more important than the body that you live in? Like you're gonna be with
Yeah.
each other for the rest of your life. Like it's so worth it. And like you said, just for even if it's just a short time, like getting the vocabulary, especially if you're more like not used to working out or doing strength training, that can be
Yes.
difficult.
Yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
for sure. Because I mean, it's complicated. It's out there a lot, but really, our body does like seven different basic moves. If you learn those basic moves and do it with good form, you can progressively grow,
Yes.
right? Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
what are some other, you mentioned like sleep hygiene and, of course, nutrition is important. We know these things, but are there any like underrated or surprising habits that contribute to longevity, that you would like to share with us? Like maybe some surprising things that we might not think of?
I think one of the most important things that doesn't get talked out enough is mindset. And I a
Let's
little
do
bit
it.
again. Yeah, mindset. You'll start becoming sensitive when you hear yourself saying or you hear someone around you saying, "Oh man, I'm real, that arthritis. I must be getting old."
Yeah.
You know, and it's meant to be like a little, joke. They're not really complaining, but at the same time, is that idea of the only reason I hurt is because I'm old. When I say the only reason you're hurting is because you're not moving enough. And during the holidays, I was just, ow, everything hurt. And I know why, you know, too much alcohol, too much sugar, too much stuff. And I just stopped and just at least cleaned up my diet and drank more water and got more. And it's like, I don't have to take Tylenol, it's gone, And so there is that mindset of thinking that pain comes from just old age. And
Yeah,
it's not.
and for some people it might be a lack of movement. I also want to point out that for some people it might be over exercise that can or
Yes.
overtraining, or maybe a different way of saying it is misalignment. Like
Uh-huh.
out of
Yeah.
balance, right? Like some people don't move at all, and that's like, they would be benefited from moving more. Some people are moving too much or like
Yeah.
draining their bodies without fueling or recovering. So like you have to have the balance. But I like the idea of like instead of blaming it on age, of course
Yeah.
age is a factor, but like what can I put into balance in my life, right?
Yes. Oh, I love that question. What is out of balance? What can I put into balance? That's a
Uh-huh.
much more proactive way of thinking about it because you have so many ways to make your body feel better, even if you are in what I call the last trimester of your life, the senior years, where it's finally you do have time. Finally, you do have wisdom. Finally, you do have all these tools, and you're going to sit there and be miserable. Oh, no,
Yeah, yeah, taking that power. Our words are so powerful.
they are.
Like of course, we say so many things and we wish we could say take some things back, but just being conscious of the words that you're speaking to yourself out loud, speaking about your body, like the cells in your body, like imagining that they're listening to what you're saying, like speak kind things about your body, speak empowering things about your body, right?
Yes, I have sometimes one of the machines in my gym, where it's like a quad extension and it's right in front of the mirror. So you're sitting in this seat where you're a little bit crunched and so if you have a little tummy, it's gonna like kind of poke out. And I have women that get in there and they go, "Oh,
Hmm.
I am so fat." And I'm,
Oh.
"Oh, listen, would you ever say that to a little 5-year-old girl who was a little chubby? Would you go, "You're fat"? No. Well, the little 5-year-old inside of you heard that. What do you
Mhm.
want to say to the little 5-year-old girl that just heard that? It's like,
Yeah.
look how hard you're working. You're trying so. I'm so proud of you. I'm so
Hmm.
proud of you for trying. Yeah.
Yeah, your body is beautiful just the way it is. I love your body. It's amazing. And also like fat doesn't have to be an insult. It's the
Oh
culture that
no.
we're in where it's always like smaller is better, stronger is better, and that can also be
Yeah.
limiting.
Well,
Um,
and have that self-love of, okay, I have work to do. I can see what the problems are that I want to fix, but I'm not going to hate myself through it.
yeah. Yeah. And that place of acceptance and loving yourself first is so makes such a big difference.
Yeah.
What are some small changes that people can make to set themselves up for a healthier future? Like again, like what probably some people maybe are in their teens listening to it, maybe in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. What can people do today, like this week? What's something small, some small changes that people can make this week for like a stronger, healthier life in their third trimester, setting themselves up for success in the third trimester of life, as you said it.
Well, it is important for younger people to pay attention to this because the other thing that I found out in reading all these studies about brain health is that Alzheimer's or dementia in general starts to set up camp 25 years before a diagnosis. So that means that it is always in there in the background, ready to plant some seeds. And every time you exercise, every time you make a good food choice, every time you get a nice, robust night of sleep, it pulls all those weeds out. All the seeds get disrupted. And so you want to always put effort into right now, the benefits right now, which are feeling a more, it gives you a mood lift, a little more kind of like a positive feeling about yourself. It expends all of that background stress that eats away at you. The cortisol gets expended in a productive way. So it's good right now, and it's good for your health right now, but it feeds that long term. It's just like, when you have a job and you make a salary and you put a little away in savings, put a little away, put a little
Mm-hmm.
away. And
Mm-hmm.
by the time you're, done working, you've got a nice retirement. And that's kind of what you're doing when you're exercising. So what I think is helpful right now is to remember that your daily habits, every positive move you make is a vote for the kind of person you want to be. And it's so important to vote well and vote often and make sure that your body knows what you're voting for.
Yeah, it's like putting the coins in the piggy bank or like building that compound interest over time. And the
Mhm.
earlier you start, the more benefits you'll see, but it's also okay to start wherever you are. It's not too late, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, there's people that I've trained that are younger that just needed to exercise because they had a very sedentary job. And so that's
Yeah.
helped them for the future to have that habit. So I guess to answer your question about what can they do right now is everybody knows what they need to do. We all know when we're not doing something. Maybe it's food, maybe it's exercise. Maybe it's working too much and not getting enough sleep. Maybe it's detoxifying your friends list so that you people in your life who are draining you.
Yeah.
Maybe it is having boundaries. It's
Mm-hmm.
new habits. It could be a myriad of things, but pick one area and just decide this month, I'm going to unpack that and I'm going to figure out there's lots of information out there. There's so many podcasts now about good sleep and about,
Mm-hmm.
that would be another, we could do a 5 hour podcast and we're going to cover
For
everything.
sure. Yeah.
So people have to get curious and do some digging. I know that I do talk a lot about these things in my YouTube channel, which I know you're going to link. But
Mm-hmm.
beyond that, it's setting up a good habit. I have to say too to that statement about it's never too late because people go, oh well, you don't know me. But I have had like a woman who's 82
Wow.
who decided she had already visited 5 continents. She wanted to see all seven. That was her bucket list.
Cool.
And so one of the things she wanted to do was go to Australia and scuba dive in the Great Barrier Reef of Australia, 82. And she was not an athlete. She was a little bit frail. She'd had
Oh.
old, rotator cuff injury but we trained and she got stronger. And the real reason she wanted to do it is because she got certified to scuba dive, but she couldn't lift those big oxygen tanks, drag them over to the edge of the boat to suit up to go into the water. And she thought, if I'm going to do this trip, I need to be stronger to be able to do that. So I trained with her. It was like 6 or 8 months to get ready for this trip. She killed it. She could do
It's so
all of it.
cool.
82. And I mean, she's like 87 now. She went to Antarctica and then she came home and she goes, all right, that was great. I have pictures of her with her mask underwater with all the fish.
That's
She's
so cool.
82. A little picture of her doing the back row, sitting on the
Yeah, that's
baby hair,
awesome.
she's adorable. And then she went to Antarctica. And
Yeah.
when you go to Antarctica, you have to be pretty strong because you're hiking with little walking sticks up the glaciers and slippery. And you have to get in and out of the little launch boat that goes from the cruise ship to the shore. You have to be able to climb in and out. So, yeah, we trained for that. Was she too old for that? No, but she could have said, I'm too old for that. She could have. You could get away with that at
For
82, but she,
sure. She could have. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And she built
yeah.
that strength up. Oh, that's such a cool story. I love that. I like that so much. It sounds like a lot of what you're saying too is like, hey, this is the benefit. If you strength train and, like take care of yourself, it's going to be beneficial for you in the long term, but you have to find something that excites you. Like you have
Yeah,
to believe that as you get older, your life doesn't have to stop. That you can
yeah.
keep moving and growing and experiencing new things even in your 80s.
Whenever I get a brand new client, I ask them, "What is it that you love doing? What is
Mm.
it you love? Oh, you like the Amalfi Coast in Italy? All those stairs that are uneven and cobblestones. You like, upper rack for the suitcase, all
Yeah.
that. Or oh, you're a pickleball champ in your senior club. Okay, let's let's protect those knees and those shoulders and yeah.
Yes.
But so then they're working out for that, not just, oh, I got to do this routine. Okay. They're
Exactly.
yeah, instead of resigning themselves to the exercise, they're like, let's do this because I need to perform over there.
It's for enjoyment, so you can
Yeah,
really enjoy your life, not just for the sake of it.
right.
So my last question I ask every guest is if you could give one message of health or fitness to everyone in the world, you have a microphone where you can talk to all 8 billion plus people in the world, what would you share with them? What would your message be? And you can take your time to think about it, but
Well, I think that it's never too late, wherever you are. Don't wait too long because the runway gets shorter as you get older.
Mm.
But the real statement that I want people to take with them is aging is inevitable, but decay is optional.
Ooh, I like that. Can you say it one more time?
Aging is inevitable, but decay is optional.
I love that. That's so good. And I know you have a wealth of knowledge. You even have a book. So where can people find you? Where would you like to point people to get more of you, Janet?
I would say you can go on to Amazon and you can just type my name, Janet McConnell, in the bar, and you will see this book. And it's a little over 100 pages. It's really written for women who
Mhm.
are 40 and over. And
Yeah.
it's not just exercise and diet. I started writing an
Mhm.
exercise and diet book, and I just thought, wait a minute, there's thousands of books out there for women on what is it that a woman who's getting ready to turn 70, what do I have to say about this? And
Mm.
it's there's a chapter on, eating in a more holistic perspective kind of way, how to look at what you're eating and about exercise. But then I have a chapter on resilience, on habit forming. You can't teach an old dog new tricks is not true. Neuroplasticity.
Yep, yep.
And how
Yes.
important to have boundaries.
Ooh, I like that. That sounds so
Yeah.
great. So The Elements of Aging Well by Janet McConnell. You can find that on Amazon. And where else would you like to point people?
I think the YouTube channel would be great. And so I know
Okay.
you'll have the show notes. And that is, I do like little 6 or 7 minute videos twice a
Cool.
week. And they're deep dives into mindset around aging and healthy longevity. Uh, I'll go on grocery store safaris where I look at labels and kind of talk about how the front of the package doesn't match what's on the back of the package. So be a smart consumer. So we talk, those are fun. And also just about exercise in general and nutrition and sleep. So
That sounds
yeah,
like a great resource. Yeah, I appreciate this angle so much. It's been so fun talking with you. Thank you for your storytelling and your vibrancy. You're also like you're living it, like the example that you're bringing to people, and like you work with clients who are, in older age, and you're seeing it happen in real life in front of you all the time. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing this information with us. I know it's going to be so helpful for so many. And I think a lot of people after listening to this are going to be like, okay, I want to go work out, which is good. Like, okay, give me some heavy dumbbells. Let's go.
let's go.
Yeah,
That's
I'm gonna
awesome.
go work out.
Thank you so much, Michelle. It was a pleasure meeting you and talking to you. And I hope that what we've talked about today will help lots of people.
Definitely. Check Janet out. Links are in the show notes, and I'll see you next time.